I'm Uncle Dominic. Today we'll be talking to our topic burnout through breakthrough, unveiling the secrets to stress, meaning free success. But here's the thing every day in our life, we are pounded with lots of things that's drowning us with reality in life. So we tend to feel like we get a burnout, we're overstressed, there's so much things going on. How can we stop that from you know, doing our things that we're supposed to do, be more successful and achieving our dreams? If we can't do that, then what we're supposed to do? So today we are going to learn a little bit more, talk about it, how we can get rid of the stress and reclaim our peace of mind and supercharge our own journey to success or to a happier life. All right, so today with us we have our guest, Sita McKee. I would like to invite her to the show. Welcome, Sita. Hi.
Hi, Uncle Dominic. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming to the show. Could you introduce yourself a little bit to the audience?
So, as you rightly said, my name is Sita McKee. I'm a wellness person, or I like to promote and enable people to be to sort of live a healthy wellness life, if I can
Mhm.
put it that way. But I'm
Okay.
also a mental health nurse by background. So I've spent some few years, I would like to say, like quite some time in trying to learn more about how the mind works or how the brain works, and therefore how we can use it to our own advantage and live well. So
Nice.
yeah, I'm really interested to be here to be able to have this conversation and see how best I can empower, educate, encourage, and enable your listeners.
Well, thank you for coming to the show. I do want to know what got you interested in, mental well-being, like what doing what you do today. Not many people will venture into this kind of path.
Yeah. So I think growing up, my dad was the sort of person that would always want to help people, even though he didn't have a healthcare background. He was
Hmm.
into building, but he would always want to problem solve for people. And I admired that passion he had. And I didn't realize that I also had that passion until I finished university. And I was in a healthcare work, supporting older people in a care home. And I was like, I really enjoy the wisdom and knowledge these older people are sharing with me, and also helping them and going home. The money wasn't much, but I always felt fulfilled. So I knew that I was meant to be in a helping or caring profession. So therefore, I wanted to do more. So I went back to uni and trained as a nurse. And I realized that with that training, I could explore or push my boundaries to learn so much more. And I went further on to do a master's in psychology and neuroscience of mental health. So I
Wow.
could better be able to help people because of the knowledge I was gaining from all that education and, looking into things or researching and understanding how life really works and how we struggle and how we can empower or help ourselves to get better. Yeah.
That is cool. So you actually went to school twice. Like you go there, you get educated, and then you go to work life, and then you figure, oh, there's something more to this, like or something else you want to do, and you go back to school again, and you get something
Yeah.
even more, and you even went on to get your master's and so on, right? So this is
Yeah.
pretty cool. So I want to point it out to my audience, to my students out there too. You see, because once you graduate from college, whatever you do, it's probably not going to be fixed on what you want in life. You might find something else, and then you can venture forth. And Sita has just shown as a great example. She went to college, she finished her degree, and came out to work life, and found out that she wants to do something else, or something even more. She found her calling, and she went on and educated again, and here she is. Right. So nothing in life is fixed. So we can change it, we can get better, we can learn more. So that is pretty
Yeah.
cool. What experience that you had, that you found something that you like to do, and it helps you,
Mm.
and you went for it. And
Yeah.
pretty interesting as well, because not many people will find this as something they will be interested in. Mainly because they, like you mentioned, is it's not well paid, right? For one, like
Mm.
I don't know why I am an educator myself, because I want to make a lot of money, but being a teacher does not do that. But I benefit in the way I'm happy that when my students succeed in their life or in their education, it makes me happy in the while, right? So I guess that's a little bit or similarity we have with each other.
Sure, we do. And I like how you put it, a calling, because that's how I see it. I see the healthcare professional, nursing in particular, as a calling. I don't think if we go into it without feeling that sort of like call into it, you can last long. Because as
Mhm.
we've identified, if it doesn't pay well, what would really attract you to it? And just to correct, I actually went to school 3 times. So I've got 3 different degrees. So my first degree actually was in economics and psychology, but I love psychology so much. So therefore, when I went into nursing, I was like, I'm going to build on that psychology aspect that I really love so much. So I actually have 3 degrees. Yeah.
Wow. How do you do that? 3 degrees. That's a lot of time spent, is it?
No, I have no idea, but where there's a will, there's a way. And if it's a calling, you would do whatever you can to fine tune or polish up your skills and hone your craft. So I needed to do whatever I could to make sure that I'm actually sound in what I'm doing and able to make more of a meaningful impact on
Mm.
people
That,
because I
that is
know
that
what
is important. Yes, and you also didn't mention there's dedication in there where you
yes,
went on and went on.
definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
All right, so let's get onto our topic, right? Have you ever experienced burnout? For example, for me, I have, stressful life, stressful work life, or even when I was in college, very stressful, and I experienced burnout before, and it wasn't such a good feeling. But what about you? Like, have you experienced it, or you've seen people have experienced it, or what can we do?
Absolutely, I have. I have. And from what we're talking about now in terms of education, I mean, when I've done podcasts with other hosts and all, I tend to talk about my work experience bit where I experienced burnout. But
Mhm.
if I think back and I'm being very honest with myself, then even during my master's degree and my nursing degree, I did experience some burnout as well, in terms of everything becoming too much and feeling extremely tired, and almost like you want to give up and then you start having this negative outlook about life.
Mm.
So definitely I have experienced it. I've seen friends and family who have experienced it, and I have clients and work with clients who have experienced it. So it's something that I feel like we don't talk more about. We talk about mental health a lot, which is great. And in terms of mental health, when we're talking about, we tend to focus more on anxiety and depression, and also some psychosis stuff or bipolar experiences that some clients may have. But we don't seem to want to talk more about burnout, or even if we do, we mention it lightly. But I feel like we're not delving deep into it. But it's through these experiences of burnout that somebody can even progress further into experiencing much more of a serious mental health condition, like more of depression or
Mhm.
extreme end of anxiety, if you like. So I think this is really important that we are all open and just share and be human and explain that it is something that we can all experience at some point in our lives, just because we work and there's so much pressure in the world in terms of stress on us when we're working
Mhm.
or whatever projects we're doing, and also home life. So sometimes balancing the two, it's not always easy. So we would end up giving more to one side of aspect of our lives that there's a demand on, and then the other aspect of our lives may suffer. So if your work is so demanding, you're giving so much time and effort there, and your home life is suffering, and with time that starts to eat up at you. Or if the other way around, if home life is so pressured and work will suffer, so productivity will fall at work. So it's really important that we see it in totality and try and find a way to um, accept that we're experiencing this and how we can move ourselves from it. In your case, calling it breakthrough. I also like
Mhm.
to say boldness, boldness in the sense that we need to be much more confident, or when we're able to deal with it, we become much more confident in life, and we're able to spot it before it even comes back on again and address it before we get back into burnout. So it doesn't mean when you come out of it, you can never go back in,
Mhm.
you know. So
That's true. Yeah.
until you address the issues that's causing you to get into burnout. Yeah.
Well, that's also the thing that you mentioned. not many people will talk about it, will actually share it, especially in Asian culture, particularly, right? People will have experienced this all the time, and they just keep it to themselves. And like you mentioned, use the word eat it, and then so it's like
Yeah,
small
yeah.
bits and bits and bits. Eventually, you break out, you break down, or then you lead to depression, and it lead to all kinds of stuff. And of course, people would say, "Yeah, depression. I have depression," but no one actually talked about like how did it start. It all
Mm,
starts small, little by little. You don't know when. Well, you don't. Some people may actually know when it actually happens to them, but some
mhm,
people probably don't know it. It probably started in school, right?
mm,
I've seen some of my students have this small episodes of burnout in their short life so far. Um,
mm,
I can see it because I have experienced it before. And then when I ask them how do they feel in their life and how, do they need help, and most of the time they were just like, no, I'm fine, my family's fine, everything's fine. But in reality, it's not. And so eventually, after a couple months later, then I will start seeing they start showing
mm.
signs of actual burnout or actual depression. But it's still not too late because they are still young, right? So
Yeah,
but it does starts from somewhere, and we just like you
yeah.
said, like you mentioned, that we need to find it. If we have it, we need to share it. So
Mm.
in one case, how would you say to the younger audiences out there to share this? Like how can they start to tell people that they have experienced this?
Yeah. So I think culture plays such a big role in how we're able to communicate our feelings or not. So if someone is from a culture that it's not really common for people to open up, then I can understand why it's not something that is much more um, what word can I use? Much more acceptable for people to feel free and open to discuss their innermost feelings. Whereas if you come from a different culture, say mostly the Western world, people feel free and open to discuss their personal feelings and experiences and stuff. So depending on the culture the person is coming from, either culture, I still believe that there is still somebody you can talk to.
Hmm.
So if you're from a culture where you still cannot be open and tell the whole world about how you're feeling, I'm sure there is somebody in your family that you can build that sort of trustworthy relationship with and open up to them. Because when we open up, it does help. It makes the burden feel lighter, doesn't it? And
Hmm.
then also seek support. So if you're in an environment where there's healthcare support for that sort of thing, it would be good to speak to your doctor about it. But if not, speak to a family member if you're a child or like your high school students and you don't feel able to go and see a doctor yourself. Speak to a family member you can trust and see how they can, seek support for you. But the more you talk about it, the better it is. And perhaps it will be good to encourage some sort of like a, a trustworthy group in your school where people feel open to discuss these things, and I think that would be helpful as well. And so people would know, or the students will know they are not alone and they can actually discuss it. And when people are sharing experiences and what works for them, people can learn from it and see if that also works for them. So
Hmm.
the other thing I encourage is, aside talking to people and connecting with people, is also trying to or practicing meditation or mindfulness. It's
Hmm.
really helpful. So if someone believes in scriptures or has a faith, I would encourage, meditating on scripture. If people like music and they feel well listening to music, I would encourage listening to a lot of music when you're feeling low, because it has a way of lifting your mood up, and not just any music, music that has good motivating lyrics that can actually uplift your mood. And also, outdoors are really good as well. Just being out and not just keeping yourself to a closed environment in your room or something. Just going out there and enjoying the sun or looking at the beauty of the world. It tends to make you forget your own problems. And
Hmm.
for the youth or young ones, it's really important that they also keep physically active. It's really helpful because the more activities you are doing, the less you worry about what's actually going on up there and distracting you from enjoying your life or being yourself, you know.
That's great. That's a lot to take in right there. Um, I'll like to break it down a little bit, like things that you mentioned, like the students out there, like all my students, for example, they can talk to people or their friends and or their families. Um, and we tend to give the excuse about culture, or I tend to say like culture. People use culture as saying, my culture is this, so we can't do anything different because this is what it is. So this is kind of like what we say the word social stigma, where they have to go through life this certain way. But I'm
Mm,
gonna say this out now. It's like I mentioned this in my other podcast with another guest. Right now, generation is changing. There's all whole new generations, and younger people out there are starting to forget what original their original culture is, and which is
yeah.
good because it gets rid of all this social stigma that's causing them to not be able to open up and not able
Mm,
to be afraid to share their problems. And so
yeah.
for students in Taiwan, you guys are really lucky for one, because all the schools or all the high schools or junior high schools in Taiwan, they have counselors, guidance counselors, and these counselors are not just to help you find careers paths. They are there to help you mentally and to fix your heart or your broken hearts. If you have some love issue or anything, you just have to go and talk to them, and they're there. And the idea is, some students are afraid, of course, sharing this emotions, their weaknesses to another adult or to another teacher. But we have to remember one thing, right? This is not about them thinking about you. This is about you fixing your heart, fixing your mental wellness. And so, and it's free for one, right? Going to see a doctor costs a lot of money for adult. If I want to see a doctor, whew, a lot of money. I actually went to my school counselor one day the other day. I was like, well, it's a couple of months back. I asked him, hey, so the students come and see you, right? I said, yeah. I was like, how many students? Oh, not a lot. In that case, you are pretty free. He said, yes, I'm pretty free. Can I come and see you? I was like, oh, no, 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 you cannot. So, like, dang it, I thought I could get a free, advice from the counselor, but unfortunately, I have to go outside to pay. But students, you have this, right? So this is amazing. Sita mentioned about going sightseeing. I myself love going to the ocean, right? Watch, well, not going into the ocean, but just go there and look at the ocean. It makes me feel like my problems are so minuscule, so tiny, and there's a whole world out there, right? So it makes and the calmness of the waves and the sound of it, it makes me feel at peace. And so this is one way to, how would you say, forget about your problems. And I think Sita also mentioned one really good thing is be busy, right? So if you have problems, get busy and eventually forget about it. I want to mention, I know one of my students have this family issue, family problems that she's seeing in her family, and she does mention it a couple of times. Um, but she keeps a very happy face and happy, outgoing personality. But in deep inside, you can tell that she's suffering, but at the same time she's trying to forget about it by just doing all kinds of happy stuff with her friends, and
Mm,
that's one way of doing it. So I can't get into too details about it, but I'm happy that she found a way to overcome her stress in her life,
mm,
right? Yeah, so that's cool. So that's totally important. All right, so we mentioned a couple of things, right? And we mentioned that the signs of burnout as well,
mm.
working long hours. So, and you mentioned meditation, or reading
Yeah.
scripture, of listening to music, listening to good music. Now, here's what I want to ask: there are students out there who are overstressed by tests, studies, or from
Mm,
workers out there like me, myself, or anyone else is stressed from overwork.
mm,
They technically have no choice; they have to do
mm,
it. Like they have to work because it's the money they need to provide for their family, right?
mm,
So this, we know the issue, they know the problem, they know the long hours. This is the thing, and we cannot say to them, "Quit your job, find a better job." It's not that easy to say that. And so for these people, you mentioned meditation, but at the same time, meditation would not be enough, or some would take this as a waste of time, because that time can be used to acquire financially for the family, or insights to help them study better. If they're trying to graduate from their master's degree to get thesis, they have to get everything done on time, right? So for these cases, how would you encourage? What would you say to them? That how can we help them, or how can you help them?
Yeah. So, okay, first of all, I would like to clarify that meditation doesn't mean spend your whole day in isolation. Okay.
Okay.
So, meditation can even be 5 minutes.
Mm,
So, if I can give you an example using myself, I prefer to do it that way because it's safe and for clients' confidentiality with my
of
clients
course,
as
of course,
well.
yeah.
So, when I'm working and I realize that I have information overload, which we all experience,
Mhm.
because sometimes there's so much that you have to take in, and you feel like, oh my goodness, how do you compartment, um, put them into different compartments, and to try and problem solve each problem at a time. So I just shut my laptop and then I just go into a zone where like 5, 10 minutes, just breathing in, breathing out, just trying to get myself to chill, let the brain chill. And then I open up the laptop. And then it's so funny how, for that moment, that brief time that I've just been able to close off from work, like shut my mind off what I'm doing. When I come back, information just starts, or solution starts coming up in my mind. And I'm able to now see things properly and resolve them. So it's about giving yourself that time to try and, how do I say this? So when you're overburdened with information, just switching off a little bit,
Mhm.
even when powers like sockets at home are overloaded, it doesn't work well, does it? So you've
Mhm.
got to try and take some plugs out and give it a chance to work properly. So why can't we do the same? Even when we use our laptops or computers for such a long time, gets to a point it freezes, right? So then you start shutting some tabs to give it time to work properly. So, in the same way, our brains are like computers. Give it time, rest a little bit. We're not saying take a whole day out to
Mhm.
rest the brain. Just switch off a little bit and then give it a rest and then come back and see it from a different perspective, what it is you're doing.
Mhm.
And in the same, so this would apply to those studying and those working. If you're going to work, even on your journey to work, you could still meditate. So you're mindfully walking, or in a car, you're just mindfully transporting yourself to the workplace. Within 5, 10 minutes, you can still use that time as a solitude time to reflect and just let yourself chill, you know, and try and look at things from a different perspective. Because if you're doing something the same way and it's not working out, you've got to try and do something a bit different.
Oh, I like
So
that.
I get that people might say, oh, well, it's just a whole lot of stuff. People are talking about it, but it won't work for me. Have you tried it? You
Mhm.
haven't tried. And if you try it, have you tried it well enough? Because consistency is the key here. If you're trying something, you've got to be consistent and persist at it. And then you can, succeed in it. So with your high school students, if they go to school studying, and um, say in an English class, you've got to read some literature books and all that, and you just read it once, and then you expect to go to an exam room and achieve an A grade. I
Mhm.
bet not many of them can achieve that because you have just read it once. You haven't actually persist or be consistent with that reading too for it to actually register in the mind. So you've got to try over and over again and train the brain to learn these new skills you're teaching it. And then you can expect that on the day of the exam, you can recollect stuff. But if you also leave things to the last minute, guess what? The last minute you fail. So it's about planning as well for your students. So if they have work and they have school, you've got to try and find a way to plan around it, having a good system in place so
Mhm.
you can go to work and then you have almost like having a timetable. So you've got your work time, your school time, your homework time, your study time. It seems like it's a lot, but without good planning, it won't work because you're all over the place. You're not consistent. You're not persistent at it, and you're not determined enough. So you might be working, but working in vain So work done is cost 90 or zero, because it's not effective way of working. It's just you're busy, but busy for nothing really. So
Mhm.
good planning, good system in place can really help you achieve the target. Yeah.
You mentioned a lot of good things out there, a lot of good things. Uh, I do have some. I know that my audience out there do have these questions that is doubting in your mind. So I want to put it out there for them as well, because when
Mm.
you mention certain things, they could be a different idea to it as well. So for most of the problems right now is, for you mentioned the socket thing. If we ran out of sockets or too overloading it, uh, to unplug the other stuff. But the thing is, most people, including me, will there's not enough socket or it's overloading. What do I do? Get another socket. Get two of them. Or like plug it in. I was like, it works. Or plug in more. And again, this will lead to burnout. But
Mm.
that's how most people or regular people who
Mm.
will think. And I do think like that sometimes. Like, okay, this is
Yeah.
not working. So what do I do? Add in more stuff, add in more stuff. Eventually, it overloads. Um,
Yeah.
the idea is, there's one time I took a journey, and it was about a day trip to another place. I was riding my motorcycle because I want to free my mind, meditate in a way, free my mind. And what I was doing there, because my mind was still, was thinking, was relaxing, I oversped a speed camera and I got caught by the police. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the most expensive meditation ever. And so, but at the same time, I felt good in a way. I was like, okay, there's positive in this. I feel better, but at the same time, I don't feel good because I had to pay for the speeding ticket. So, for those out there who are meditating while you're driving, where you're thinking, please be careful. Watch out for the speed cameras. Don't speed because it does happen, and you will feel all down again, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it reminds me of a show, a cartoon, um, a Disney cartoon. Yeah, I believe it's, yeah, Frozen. I don't know if you know Frozen, and where the part where
Yeah.
she sang the song "Let It Go." I mean, she
Yeah.
let all the stress and all the worry go, right? And so, but at the same time, I feel like for most people, the idea of letting go of their stress or trying something new takes a lot of courage. Right?
Mm.
And you mentioned that if it's not working, why keep on doing it, right? Try
Mm.
something else. But the idea of trying something else is hard, and I'm sure everyone out there agrees with me. It's difficult. It's just like stepping out of the bubble, right?
Mm.
You mentioned that, yeah, it's all going to be, a waste if we don't, if we're doing the same thing, just like busy work for nothing, right?
Mm.
But most people are afraid, right? So
Mm.
what can you say, or suggestion, advice that you have known through your experience to help these people to step out of their bubble, and experience something new? Because right
Yeah.
now they do know that doing the same thing is not working. Trying something new might work, but at the same time, it's scary, it's daunting, it's huge, right? So what's your advice on this?
So for me here, you need someone who can mentor you or coach you,
Mhm.
because in life we can't always achieve things on our own. We could try, but along the way, you would need somebody with more experience, expertise to push you along or guide you. So in this case, if somebody has been trying or is scared to come out of their bubble and try, you need somebody to encourage and empower you and enable you. So this is some of the things that my wellness business does. We provide that safe space and coach people to move them from that place of burnout to a place of boldness where they are able to have that control back, because they are out of their bubble now. And as I said, it's really difficult sometimes to do this journey by yourself. I, as a wellness professional, I still have a coach because there are times you still need someone who sees it from a different perspective compared to how I would see things. Because when I'm in it all the time, we can't help it, but sometimes our vision becomes quite, like a tunnel vision, quite
Mhm.
myopic in how we might see things. So if you have someone else who's got your back and can see things from an objective perspective and let you know, it's really helpful and it guides you. Okay, I've been going this direction. I thought that was the way forward, but now I'm feeling stuck, but I don't see any way out. And then your coach will say, have you tried this at that? Perhaps 10 left a bit or 10 right, or perhaps take a pause now and breathe and think differently, reflect and see which other exit or way that you might find to carry on the journey. So we need that sort of person who's got our back. So it has to be a trustworthy person as well, because you don't want to just tell anyone that this is what you're going through, because not everyone will have that constructive feedback or
Mhm.
guidance for you. So I don't know if that helps, but I
Mhm.
find it really helpful to have a coach in my corner, and also wherever I've worked in the past, having mentors and learning from them, because they've done all that journey. They've walked that life that I perceive to walk or have the desire to achieve a goal in. So why do I have to walk all that long journey if someone has already done it and can give me a shortcut to get there by telling you, avoid this road, avoid that road, do it this way, because it will end you in a better position than just pushing through and not knowing where you're going. I sorry, it sounds like I'm speaking in parables, but I'm hoping that the sort of the
Oh,
way
I
I'm
gotta
doing
take notes down and and break the parallel, but no, it's pretty 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 clear out there. I'm trying to think of what other questions based on this, but it is true what you said. A lot of things like that, so it is true. Um, the things we finding mentors is it's you mentioned we get a coach, we get a mentor, and they tell us or they advises us on what to do. But majority of the time as well, people are stubborn in their ways of life and not humble enough to listen to the coach, even though it's a coach, it's a mentor, right? Um,
Mm,
you will go, for example, some people will go to the doctor nowadays, and well, during my time when I was younger, if I go to the doctor's okay, you gotta eat this medicine, you gotta eat apple, 3 apples a day, whatever. I was like, okay, I'll listen to it and go home and do it. But nowadays we have people who go to the doctor say, oh, you gotta go do this, you gotta do that, and they're like, I don't think so. On this website, so and so, they tell me I should do this instead, and so we're not trusting the other person's idea. But in the first place, why did we go to that person in the first place? If we have a mentor, we go for the advice, and the coach or the mentor gave it an advice, and we don't listen to them. And so I
mm,
think we need to put into the sense that being humble, um, and not judgmental about the advice, or we giving advice as well. That way, I think that's one way that you mentioned that we could break through from this, try something new. But I
yeah.
think that's hard because I'm gonna put the culture thing. Asian culture has this social stigma where you say something to someone and immediately someone would judge you for it. Uh, if my children come to me and tell me something, immediately I'll be judging him for it. I'll be like, oh. And there's also a saying where Western culture where a kid will run and fall down, and the parents are like, "Oh, are you okay? What's wrong?" Stuff like that. Asian culture, a kid falls down, it's like, "I told you many times, do not run," and you fall down. It's like a judging thing, I think. But this is a culture thing, right? So we use this
So
as excuse, right? Yeah.
I was gonna say that. So for me, coaching doesn't mean I'm telling the client what to do. Okay. It's more about working with the clients for the clients to identify where they are at in their life, who they are. Because until you know who you are, your identity and your purpose, or where you get your strength from, which I refer to as your source, and where what your potential is and what your destiny really is, which is like your goal, where you want to get to. If you don't know these five things, it's really hard to work with any client. So in my coaching um, work with my clients, we spend time to try to get to help them understand who they are as a person, so they find this out on their own with support, with guidance. So it's not me telling you, okay, you've done this too long, snap out of it, go and do this. No, it doesn't work. In the same way you put it, if I went to the doctors and the doctor gives me tablets and I won't take it. So I want to be working with the doctor in a way that I feel ready to then work with the doctor rather than just accept everything that the doctor is telling me to do. Because we know that it doesn't work that way, like giving advice to people. People won't take it because they've spent years, they have their history, their minds. How do I just come in within a short period and expect them to unlearn everything they've learned in their life? It's really impossible in a way. So it's about working with them, seeing where they are at, and then supporting them on the journey to find out where they want to go, and then supporting them. So the only thing I would do is, if they're taking a wrong turn, why are you taking that turn? What do you think you might achieve there?
Mm.
Why didn't you choose that turn over this turn? So it's trying to get to understand why they make some choices, and perhaps give them that room to explore. That's not always the right turn. Perhaps I could take a left turn at some point to then get to a right turn. So it's that sort of time, and um, on being non-judgmental, so creating that safe space for the client to help them explore in their own time. But the
Mm.
key here is they've got to be ready. So there's a lot of work around self-awareness, because until you know who you are and where you're going, you can't even get there. So a lot of work around your identity or the client's identity, and also that they are ready to accept that type of support. Yeah.
But I feel like also, right, like if we pay for a coach or pay for a mentor, pay for the advice or get for his service, I feel like we should somehow listen to it, like not just work with them.
Yeah.
I know the modern thinking right now where people will, yes, we have to work together, but I feel like it doesn't create certain kind of trust. There is like,
Mm.
if you see a doctor, you got to trust that a doctor, well, he's educated in medical science or whatever he is doing. I'm sure he knows a little bit more than me. As a teacher, I teach social studies, so it doesn't mean I know more than him. I know the names of historian doctors, but he actually learned from medical school. I mean, maybe he's not a great doctor in his school. Maybe he did get a great school, but still, he's a doctor. Um, Speaking about that as well, there is a story in the Bible where Jesus was talking to, who was that? I can't remember his name. Peter or John, someone, where he says, "Come walk with me on the water," and then he's, who was that? Do you remember?
It was Peter. Peter,
Peter,
he
and
has
then
to walk on
he
the water. Yeah.
he walked on the water, and then he stumbled in after a couple steps later, right? And
Mm.
so, and the whole idea about that was, if he had trust Jesus at that time, he would have
Faith.
just kept on walking. Instead, he
Yeah.
started doubting Jesus' authority or whatever, and
Yeah.
or reality of life, and he just stumbles in the water. And so, for
Yeah.
me, in that sense, I felt like we need to be humble. Like, if you
Hmm.
tell me right now to try something else, and I know you as a coach or a mentor, I come to you for an advice. I should
Mm.
not be judgmental of your advice in the first place,
Mm.
and be willing to take in what you have told me or advise
Mm.
me. And I would probably try it, right? If I don't try it, then, like you said, if you don't try something different, you're stuck. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out there, for example, like me, sometimes I'll be like, you don't know my history. You don't know where I come from. But then we should avoid that kind of questions. I feel like, in order to be successful, to be out of this problems we have with our mental illness or mental health, get better in it, we should know that we want something to improve ourselves, not
Mm.
not to put ourselves, not to put another block into our problems in life. So, because, for example, I feel like, I know I have a problem, right? I go to someone, a mentor, for help, and the mentor give me an advice, and I'm like, you don't know me, I wouldn't take your advice. And then I'm putting another block to it. It's like I'm adding blocks and blocks and blocks and creating a wall. And how can someone help you when we are adding walls upon the walls that is already there? And
Mm.
we gotta break it somehow. And I know the coach, like you guys, will help a lot. And so, speaking about that, guys, so she's working for a company called Your Valued. I put it down there on the scrolling thing, so you can check it out. It's your evaluate.co.uk, right? And I
Yeah,
do like
you're
that about
right.
them because their company uh, motto is "You're valued," and that is
Yeah.
important. I want to say because we have value. All of us has value. All our students has value. So we just have to think about that. I want to bring out an experience that I had. This was probably looking at 4 to 5 years ago. I have a student in another different high school that I taught in.
Mm,
She came to me and she says, Dominic, teacher Dominic, right? Teacher Dominic. I know you're a Christian and stuff like that. She's not, and so she's asking me about my journey to be a Christ as a Christian, and also why do I come to Taiwan and all these things. And so I did mention, and she's like, she asked me one question that I remembered, and she's like, "Is it hard? Is it tough?" I was like, "No one ever asked me that, you know." It's a journey. Yeah, it's tough. Coming to a different culture, coming to a different environment, different language world. It's tough. And so I told her it takes time. Now she looks at me. It's like, yeah, I could speak Chinese now, but I couldn't then. And so,
mm,
but it's all about figuring out what you want and trying out something different, something new. I mean, I
mm,
told her if I didn't do what I did, I'll probably be still in the US or still in Australia. And maybe my life is a bit different, we
mm,
don't know. So I told her that. And she mentioned to me that her life is stuck right now. Her parents wants her to do this and do that. And I mentioned something to her. Well, it's your life right now. It's your parents helping you because they love you and because they want certain way of their life that they think is better for you. And I told her that you should value that. Maybe
mm,
when you reach a certain age, as you get older, you can think for yourself more. And so right now she's about, I would say she's 20 something now, 20 plus, I think. So she's starting to do things what she wants and she's more open in it. And she's more happier now. But
mm,
the idea is, I think she mentioned to me once that Dominic, when I talked to you, that gave me all kinds of new ideas and bravery and courage. And so I would say she knows her weaknesses. She took my advice, and she didn't put a wall to it.
mm,
She doesn't. She knows that I don't know her family business or anything.
mm.
She just took some advice, and eventually now I looked at her on Facebook sometimes, and or she contacted me sometimes, and she's a whole different person, a whole new, exciting person in the sense
Yeah.
that she has found what she wants to do in her life.
Mm,
I mean, that's important for everyone. I think we all as individual needs to find that sometimes and
mm.
stop putting walls. We know there's walls in front of us. Stop putting walls. Um, we know we get stressed from work. You know, like she says, take a like Sita says, take a break sometimes. Leave
Take a break. It's really important. Take a chill pill, they say.
a chill pill. There, I have I have a student. I hope he's watching this. He always says, "Dominic, take a chill pill." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just rest. Just rest. It's really important. And recharge those batteries, that brain power. You need to recharge it sometime. So not overworking it by burdening it with lots of stress and worries. Yeah.
There's well, this is kind of a joke, but this is kind of real too. Like you mentioned, turn off your computer and everything, and then later on come back and you have your ideas. For me, if I turn off my computer at work, I'm saying at work, after a couple of minutes, I turn it on again. Brrr, bunch of messages. It's like, so much things going on. So well, I guess that's also good with nowadays with cell phones and stuff. They have this thing where you can actually turn off notifications after a certain time at night. And
Mm,
so I think that's very valuable, especially when you want to
yeah.
take a nap. You want to sleep. You
Yeah.
want that 8 hours of sleep or 4 hours of sleep, whatever you want. Turn it off. Your phone can leave it on and then go to sleep. When you wake up in the morning, you can see all your messages. But
Yeah.
at the same time, don't reply to them. It just
It's learning to be boundaried, isn't it? Learning
that's
to
it.
have boundaries in place. Yeah.
And that is my next question to you as well. Like we know boundaries, we know
Mm,
work balance, right? The work balance in everything. But how do we actually balance work professional success life to our personal well-being, maintaining it? because
Mm,
I heard some successful people out there, for example, like uh for some now Jack Ma, yeah. So he's like he's very successful in his business world, but he said he sacrificed his family life, and so
mm,
that means therefore he's sacrificing his personal well-being in a sense. Like
mm,
he focused so much on his career, and right now he is super successful. He's a lot of money, but he regrets certain things about like I don't have family life.
mm.
So I always hear stories about there's only one side success, one side family life, one side. There's nothing like they're ever together. Like what is your take on this?
For me, it's planning as well, So if you're boundaried, a lot of planning goes into it. Again, if I can use myself as an example, I have a full-time job. I'm still the founder of You're Valued, and I have a family. So how do I juggle these three? So planning really is important. When it's family time, it's family time. I switch off from work. When it's your value time, trying to get my wellness business going. I mean, when I was starting it up and all, it was boundaried as well. So I finished my full-time job, and then I know that I've got a couple of hours at night time to then work on it. So it's planning, giving myself those boundary time. So for example, if I work 9 to 5, 5 p.m. I finish work. By the time I finish sending the last email and turning off my laptop, say it's about half past 5. I
Mm,
then have dinner with the family, okay? And from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., call it my me time. So my me time, I could do my meditation, maybe 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And then the rest of the time, the hour, 45 minutes, I work on Your Valued. So it's having that plan. It sounds a bit robotic, but if you want something in life, you've got to put the planning into it. You can't just get up and do things haphazardly and expect you to be successful. Some people might be successful because they're lucky that way. But if you want to plan it properly, I think the chances of you succeeding will be much better than, leaving it to chance, if that makes sense.
mm-hmm.
Okay.
But
So
yeah, definitely.
so I would definitely encourage good planning. If you have something that you want to do, like start a business or go into a different venture, but you still have work that you're doing, just be boundaried, and plan really well. Put a good plan in place and follow through with that plan. No point in designing the plan and sitting back and expecting it to work on its own. It's not magic. You've got to actually do the work as well, yeah.
It's just like in the scriptures, faith without works is dead, right? So
Yeah,
you
true.
have faith in God, but you don't
You don't
make it work.
work.
That's nothing gonna happen. Like if you pray and you expect God to help you, sure He will help you, bless you somehow. But if you don't work, it's not gonna work. It's like, oh
Yeah.
God, give me some money, and you don't work. I don't think He's gonna give you any money. Maybe He's gonna give you a car. I don't know. Chances are, some people are pretty lucky out there with the lottery and all kinds of stuff. But still, I believe, like you said, planning is important. Do you have any tips on planning for students, like for let's say high school students right now? They're still in their life of schooling, studying,
Mm,
right? And
yeah.
most of the time in Taiwan, like parents will help the students plan their life. So
Mm,
yeah, after a couple years, you're gonna be a doctor. Pretty much everyone's gonna
mm.
be a doctor. But what are your suggestions for them to plan? Because most of the time, I ask my students their own ideas. Like, I don't know what I want. My parents want me to do this, so I just not gonna follow that way, right? So, what is your idea of planning for them? Your advice?
So I guess culture is different, isn't it?
Mm,
So because I'm not familiar with their culture in Taiwan, it'll be really difficult for me to comment on that. But I think the whole idea is um, knowing what you want, but also if you live in a family or an environment where family speaks louder or um, sort of like have a say in how you do things, then for peace sake, you've got to listen as well as you're a growing up child, because growing up, you listen to you. We trust that our parents know the right way and they are,
yeah, I
leading
hope my
us
kids
on
are
it.
listening to this. Listen to your parents. They don't really listen to me, but yeah. So
So if we're doing it that way, then for peace sake, but as you grow, and I guess because we're children at that point, but once you're an adult and you are making your own decisions, then I guess that depends on how that person wants to go about it. But in terms of planning as well, in high school, if I can put it that way, you have your curriculum and also home life, whatever parents are expecting you to do before or after school. So again, looking at what your day looks like and putting plan in place, as I said, like just let's call it timetable, for how you would be doing things and sticking to it. So as I said, being consistent with it. Because if you do it one day and you don't do it the next day, you still won't achieve much. And then at the end, when there's exams, there's so much pressure on people. So it's having that timetable in place and following through with it. Sometimes it might need some amendments because family life has changed or your duties or whatever duties you're being asked to carry on at home has changed. Again, going back to that timetable and tweaking it to reflect the changes in your life. So not being too rigid with it, being flexible with moving things around and making sure that either way you can still achieve the top things that you need to be achieving. So if
mhm.
say your priority or your student's priority is the schoolwork, make sure that you're allocating enough hours to complete those tasks to make sure that you are ready for exams and passing exams and all that. And also having that balance in that timetable, making sure that you leave room for yourself to exercise or, like you said, go sightseeing, doing some an activity that's fun to also unwind and feel that joy, in your mind. So it will be good for sorry, my battery seems to be running low now.
Oh,
Oh my, yeah. We've been talking for quite a long time and I've got to try and put this is live show. So at some point it might just cut off because I'm quite far from where the socket is
okay.
to plug.
Oh, well, we'll keep it short now. But yes, so we did get a lot of things. I want to add in one thing that I mentioned. Like, I'll be quick with this, right? So, many years ago when I was in college, I actually met one of my friend of mine, co student of mine, a student, right? Uh, Classmates of mine, and she's really good in drawing. Like, but she's very quiet and she kept everything to herself. And noticed her and I said, "Hey, your work's great. Why don't you just publish it? Like, share it to everyone. Let everyone see your work." Um, she said, "Oh no, no, no." She wouldn't do anything, and so I always encourage her. Even after she graduated, we split apart, and she got married and she has her own family. And then eventually, after she has a family, she has a kids. She started having this uh reality check with everything that's going on. It's like, oh, my life is boring, I'm just a stay-at-home wife or whatever. And eventually she starts drawing again, and then she started posting up small tiny pictures of hers on Facebook, and eventually n- she actually worked for Disney in drawing one of the cartoons before.
Wow.
And now she has on comics on her side and everything. She's very famous now. But at the same time, I felt like if she has maybe taken my advice earlier, she'd been famous way earlier. It's a whole different life. And so,
Perhaps, Dominic, we need to see that this is the time. Maybe this is the time for her to be famous, you
yeah,
know? So,
we don't know, but it's all about, you know, f- finding something and then figuring it out. Like I told my
yeah.
students many times, we go to school is I'm sure people say it's a waste of time. Sure, but everything we learn one day we will use it eventually.
Mm,
Maybe not
yeah.
now, maybe not 2 years later, maybe 20 years later. Oh, I know something from geometry. I was like, oh, I know something from this. And then they will help you in your life. Maybe one day you have kids of your own and they need help with their math, and there you
You
go.
know how to do it. Yeah, true.
Because right
True.
now my kids ask me about math stuff. I'm like, oh, I don't know. So, but yeah.
Cool.
Well, everyone out there, her battery is running low. So let's keep it to the end.
What embarrassment.
So no, let's keep it round. So if you have three steps on breaking this burnout thing that everyone's having, what would you say? 3 steps.
Talk to somebody who cares about you, and offload. have your me time, that's your meditation, mindfulness time, to actually also recharge your batteries. And keep active, keep active, like physical health stuff, sleep well, eat well. Those things, they are really important. And I can throw a fourth one in there: get yourself a coach if you need to be on the right direction to get to where you want to get to. A coach in your corner would always be very helpful for you to achieve what you want to achieve. Yeah.
Thank you, Sita, for your 3 points. I just want to add in out there as well, everyone. Our problems in life is too much. There's problems every day. Stop putting problems there yourself. I mean,
Hmm.
there are problems already. Stop putting more walls onto walls. Stop doing that. Stay humble, learn. We know we're stressed out, just like she says. Find someone to talk to, express it. If you cannot talk to your friends, you cannot talk to your spouses, to talk to anyone. I'm sure there's one person out there that you can
Hmm.
share with it. And so, with that, we're gonna end our stream today. And thank you again, Sita, for coming here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been lovely being here. Thank you. And the conversation has been brilliant. Thank you for
Thank
having
you
me.
so much. And I hope everyone find an answer to our burnout and stress in life and overcome it. And if you need more help, Sita is there. Go to her website, your value dot what is it again? Your e value
.co.uk.
.co.uk. Yes, go there. I put it down there so everyone can go there. And also, if please like and support this channel by donating up here, this QR code right here that I have it up there, and all like and support our YouTube pages and stuff. So that's it. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.